Kevin, Dr. Jester here. Wanted to go over your presentation for just a moment. Actually, I like the themes that you've used of, let me see, discipleship. That's great. Service. And what was the other one there? Devotion to the gospel. And that was the very first one. I really like those. And I think you've included some good details. Some of the issues are in the sense that some of the text is actually considerably small and would not be visible in an actual presentation. So anytime you do a PowerPoint presentation, you have an audience. You've got to think of that not as a reading audience, but as a viewing audience. It's kind of like a video, but you're a presenter. This is going to be on your screen. In order for your group to be able to view your presentation, they have to have large fonts. This is the large font header. Great, wonderful. This right here is 19 point. Actually, it's too small to be seen in a normal presentation. You need to have minimum 24-point font on an actual presentation before a live audience in order for the person in the back of the room to be able to read what you're saying. If you're in a large enough auditorium, it's going to be very difficult for some people to see some fonts. So you want those large enough that anyone can see. So I don't have an issue with content at all. Actually, content is great. You've developed all that good. You've used enough graphics, not too many. In some places, there's a little too much going on. You might want to narrow that down to just a couple of things. But we have a larger problem. Let me mention two quick things before I get to the major problem. One of the things you have to do, note here that you've got a quotation from Scripture, and then you've got a reference down here, very, very small. What I would suggest is at the end of your quote, just add Romans 12, etc. Just at the end of the quote. Now, if you're going to cite a source, for example, that one's not a source. Where do you have a source? Let me go back up here. I think you've got a quotation number 2 from somewhere else. Yeah, you've got a quotation right here. That cannot be read here. So what you have to do with that, you can't do that at the bottom of the page. In this particular case, you need to do it in speaker's notes, which you don't use, or you need to place it at the end, just before your reference sections. You need to have an endnote section on presentations where each note is numbered, but it's an endnote instead of a footnote. So those are style issues to consider. Now, we do have a problem. The problem is, if you had included speaker's notes with a lot of commentary, this probably would not be an issue. But here's what Turnitin says. When I see a lot of quotes, and it always warns me when I bring up a document or a presentation for review, it always warns me if too much of the presentation or document is quoted material, and that includes scripture references. So what I do in those cases, I select the filter, I deselect exclude quotes, and that gives me the percentage. In your case, 46% of your document is actually quoted material. You've got some internet sources here are the ones that it's showing. This wouldn't be a problem if it was less than 20%. I give warnings between 20 and 30%. Normally, under these circumstances, I would provide you a first warning. However, because it's so close to 50%, GCU pays particular attention to these because it's so much of your document is in quoted material and not in your own words. I do have to have you revise that. So how are you going to need to revise it? What you're going to need to do is go back to your quotations and just provide the reference without the quote. Revelation 21:5. Cut down on some of these, the large quotes here. Cut down on as many of those as you can to get that percentage down to about 20%. Once you've done that, resubmit it. I'm going to post this in the individual forum. That way you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here and view that video. Okay, if you have any questions, please do let me know. All right, now, as an added bonus, I'm not going to, typically there's a 10% deduction for revision. As this is your first one, I'm going to be gracious and not deduct any points, but you need to get this back to me as soon as you can. But if there are any future instances where we have to do a revision when quotation percentages are too high, there will be a 10% deduction on that. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions.